Tom Greatrex.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. It's been an important debate with a number of significant points made by many honourable members speaking with very limited time. And I did note the comments from the members for Ynys for Carrick and Cumnock, from Glasgow North West, from Sedgefield, from Clwyd South, from Coatbridge, Christen and Bells Hill, and from North Ayrshire and Arran, amongst others, who all made very important points around the aspects of the government's changes to the feed-in tariff. We could no doubt have had a somewhat longer debate this afternoon had time not been curtailed by the urgent statement and lengthy statement from the Secretary of State earlier this afternoon and his lengthy speech at the start of the debate. But I do want to keep as brief as I can to enable the Minister to respond to the debate, because there are a number of important issues that have been made I'm sure he will wish to respond to. And he is a politician that many of us have come to appreciate, especially in recent works, as a master of his art. The reduction in the feed-in tariff effectively slowly suffocates the growth that this policy has so far encouraged. Not my words, but the words of the Minister's close colleague, Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London. Industry trust and confidence in the government has evaporated. Again, not my words, but those of the CBI. These new rates mean that unless you have significant savings, you're unlikely to be able to afford solar panels. Once more, not my words, but those of Friends of the Earth. And the ability to build such a consensus against his own policy is a formidable feat for which I congratulate the Minister. I would also like to pay tribute to his transformational skills. In a few short weeks, he has managed to turn a policy that was admired, appreciated and effective into a shambles, mired in confusion, contradiction and potential legal challenge. But he is, of course, a man of great foresight, with the absolutely extraordinary ability to set a consultation with an effective date close to 2 weeks before the close of the consultation. It's a remarkable record from a remarkable minister. Mr Deputy Speaker, I can only look on in awe and wonderment at his abilities and only aspire to never quite plumb those depths myself. I will indeed.
Thank you, and I'm grateful to my honourable friend giving way. Does he not agree with me that the issue for the consumer is not the £1 each that it would cost for the feed-in tariffs? It's the fact that this government have clearly and demonstrably failed to tackle the big six energy companies that are taking massive and obscene profits out of the British consumer. Yes.
My honourable friend is entirely right, and when the Minister, as perhaps he's about to do following his Secretary of State, makes points around consumer bills and compares the £1 cost with the 1,345 average annual bill, and that's 0.08%, less than 0.1% of that, I think those figures speak for themselves. The government have, with their action, I'm going to try and make some progress because I do want to give the Minister some time to respond. The government have endangered an industry in its very infancy and sent, as my honourable friend for Ynys made clear, sent a signal to the rest of industry that it's doing the UK a lot of damage. It suggests you can't rely on what the government says because they'll change their position with scant consultation, with no planning and in an arbitrary way. And as E.ON have said only yesterday, this sort of action creates uncertainty for business and will have a negative impact. The Minister's argued that there's a pressing need to reduce costs, installation costs have fallen and the subsidy must follow. And despite the Secretary of State's best attempt to muddy the waters earlier on, actually no one argues with that. Not the solar industry, not consumer organisations, not this side of the House. Indeed, as he well knows, and maybe it takes him 6 months to answer his correspondence, but trade bodies have been arguing for months that there should be a sensible, structured reduction in the subsidy. But not a jump off the landing, but a walk down the stairs. The government consultation says installation costs have reduced by 30%. And it's no good the Minister getting to his feet and quoting the costs of panels in isolation from the other costs to justify the 70% figure from Bloomberg. But if the installation costs are reduced by 30%, then why is the tariff being cut by 52% in one go? Because perhaps, as he has claimed before, it's part of his cunning plan to cut energy bills. But as my honourable friend from Durham made clear, that attempt will just not work. Because I'll make a little bit more progress and I may be able to give way. I'm very conscious of the time and the Minister needing to be able to respond. But the important point is that this policy also costs. It costs and will cost some of the 25,000 jobs. It will cost some of the 3,000 businesses, and it costs the confidence in the UK as a place to invest. And £1 a year on a bill to pull the plug on one of the few industries providing growth and jobs that are not elsewhere in the economy is shameful. £1 a year to put at risk 25,000 jobs and thereby reduce tax revenues and increase benefit payments is short-sighted. It costs community projects across the whole of the country that are being cancelled, it costs cooperative models that are being developed, it costs social housing schemes, and it costs the sense of people having an involvement in the way in which electricity is generated in this country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it would not be fair for me to suggest that the Minister, as much as he has united opposition against his policy, is without friends. He has a very supportive Secretary of State with a burgeoning reputation for collegiate behaviour in government and loyalty to his colleagues. And the Secretary of State, also known to dabble in Twitter, so I'm sure he's made the Minister aware that there is indeed a Save Greg Barker Twitter feed. It has 18 followers, but you know, perhaps they might have some more after the debate today. But there are more than 18 of the Secretary of State's honourable friends who have expressed concern about his department's action in relation to feed-in tariffs. 24 of them on the Lib Dem benches have signed EDM 673 that says the feed-in tariff scheme will provide much-needed stability for expansion of renewables up to 2013. The Manchester... Oh, give way again.
I'm very grateful to the honourable member for giving way. And really, the Labour motion turns on the penultimate line, which refers to more measured proposals. If we are to have, and I think we all agree across this House that we want to have a more sustainable solution than the present one, what are these more measured proposals and how are they going to be paid for?
I think, and as a signatory to the EDM, I'm sure that the member for St Ives has expressed his concern on these issues, and I will go on to make a couple of remarks about what I think we need to do next following this motion being supported, I hope, by the member for St Ives and his other colleagues who have signed that EDM. Indeed, the member for Manchester Withington, who was here earlier and is no longer in his place, was quoted on the Friends of the Earth website from last week saying that solar has been a real success story. We can't afford to jeopardise thousands of jobs by slashing the feed-in tariff and creating uncertainty, giving the industry no time to adjust. And the member for Lewis, a government minister, nonetheless says on his website that he's got concerns about the speed and level of the proposed changes for community projects and therefore asking the Secretary of State to examine urgently the case for some flexibility. The Secretary of State's own PPS, indeed the member for Chippenham, quoted in the Financial Times this morning, said that we should look at the German model of gradually reducing the support rather than a jump off the cliff, as I described it earlier. For all of those friends of the Secretary of State, if they want to be friends to the government, and I do understand their desire, however misguided, to support the government, if they do want to get the government to right its mistakes, if they do want to repair some of the damage of the last few weeks, if they do indeed want a sustainable, sensible model for support going forward, if they want to walk down the stairs rather than jump off the landing, if they perhaps want to save Greg Barker, but if they want to help the government, then what they must do is vote for the motion this evening. Because look at the wording of the motion. It's about getting a sustainable, sensible, gradual approach to this rather than a sudden cut that's putting people in jeopardy, putting jobs in jeopardy, putting businesses in jeopardy and leaving consumers high and dry. Let's help rescue the government from the mess they have made for themselves. Support the motion this evening.